Welcome to the Acts of Faith podcast. We're your host. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Shannon. We know how hard it can be to step out in faith and do what God is asking of you. There are so many challenges that we can face and can hold us back from walking in God's plan.
We want to encourage you to take that step of faith. Here, we will share stories big and small in hopes of inspiring you to answer your call. Today on the podcast, Katelyn Hall joins us. Katelyn shares about a time when she had to trust that God was going to give her time with her daughter. This episode shares medical diagnoses of a child, a possible loss, but God shows up in Katelyn's and her daughter's story, reminding us that God is bigger than our circumstances. Let's dive in.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Katelyn Hall here, and she is just a longtime friend. I've known her since high school, and right now she's married to her high school sweetheart, which is cool. We share that in common. There were some good picks at Sickles. Yeah. For us at least. And she's a mom of 3. She just had her last baby. I think you're like 2 months postpartum or
A little over 3.
a little over 3. Oh my gosh, yes. And I am just so happy she even came here today. I can't imagine the sleep and the chaos just to get here, the sleep deprivation and everything. And she also works for the crime scene investigation unit. So she's with the CSI, which I find that to be so cool. I wish we could just have an entire discussion about that because you just don't meet anybody who does that. And it's on TV and it's so cool and interesting. Yeah. So we're just so thankful though that you came here today. And she's a part of the Beautiful Moms Ministry at Grace Family. And so it's just such a privilege I get to do that with her. So yay, thank you for coming, Katelyn.
Of course, thank you guys for having me. I was very hesitant about coming on today, but Stephanie actually sent me a message through Shannon that was like, man, she must have something good to say if the devil's trying to block her from this. I'm like, you know what? Amen. I'm on my way. I will be there. So here I am.
Yes. Yeah, thanks for not letting him win. No, because you do have a good story. And we want to hear about a time that God asked you to act out in faith.
Okay, so I think one of the biggest ones that stand out for me was my first daughter. So me and my husband, I didn't really want kids until I was like 30 years old. And I decided, you know what, I think I want to try and have at least one. So we'll start with one. And we bought a house and we started trying. And we were really fortunate. We got pregnant right away. And first 20 weeks were amazing. You know, I didn't have any issues. Everything looked great. 20 weeks comes and, you know, everyone gets their anatomy scan. So excited. My husband had like a mandatory training for work that day. So he wasn't able to come. So I went with my mom and my sister. And when you go to these anatomy scans, you don't, especially the first time mom, you're like, I have no idea what I'm looking at. It's just blobs on a screen. So, you know, I'm sitting there with my mom and my sister. We're laughing. Everything's going well. I didn't want to know the gender because we were going to do a gender reveal that weekend. So we did everything. And the tech was like, okay, if I could just have you guys wait in the waiting room, you know, we'll call you back in just a minute. I didn't think that's weird because I'd never been through that before. They called me back into the room and it wasn't even the doctor that I saw. It was like the nurse practitioner. And she was like, so the doctor looked at everything and there's something wrong with your baby. And I'm like, can you elaborate a little bit on that? What do you mean there's something wrong with my baby? And they're like, well, we see some stuff going on like with her heart, but we can't really be sure because, you know, we need to send you to like a maternal fetal medicine doctor, which is basically like a high risk doctor to do a better ultrasound. And I was like, okay, like, is my baby gonna die over the weekend? Like, what does this mean? Because it was a Friday and they couldn't get me until Tuesday. And I just was the rug had been pulled out from under me. I was speechless because I didn't expect anything like that to happen. And so they're like, do you want to get your mom? My mom came in. I was hysterical with my mom as soon as she came in and called my husband. And he's like, you know, it's going to be okay. Maybe they just saw something weird and we'll go to this other one and I'm sure everything's fine.
So they didn't tell you any
No.
information as to what they saw.
No.
That kind of set off alarms in their mind. They're just like, there's something wrong.
Yeah. They're like, we don't really know
How
what it is.
discouraging.
It was very,
terrifying.
it was very, very discouraging. And just to not have any answers and to not have any answers for like 4 days. I just had to sit in limbo basically. We talked about it and we decided to still go forward with the gender reveal because I still wanted to know what it was. And I think I was still in disbelief that anything was actually wrong. We found out she was a girl and I actually picked her name that weekend. It was Ruby. We had a great weekend. We went into the appointment with positive thoughts, thinking that everything was going to be okay. The ultrasounds that they do for like the level 2, they take quite a bit. It was like a good 45 minutes of them taking every image of every little part of her. We sat there for a while, waiting for the doctor to come in, and he just kind of had this look on his face where I'm like, everything's not okay. And so he said, "Listen, you guys, I don't have good news. Um, she's got a lot of fluid buildup in her chest. She's got ascites, which is like a lot of fluid buildup in her abdomen, and then she also has a very severe heart defect, which she has what's called hypoplastic left heart syndrome, which basically means that your left ventricle never developed fully. So she only had a three-chambered heart. And the doctor was like, I do this a lot, and I want to tell you that it's very doubtful that she's going to make it. Just so you know that I don't see this ending well. He was very matter of fact. He wasn't harsh about it, but he was very matter of fact. And he's like, obviously, I want you to take some time. He's like, we can do some chromosomal testing to see if it's a chromosomal defect or something like that, which I had to get an amniocentesis for, which is I would no, 0 out of 10 recommend for anybody if you ever have to get one. It's awful.
They're painful.
They are, yeah. Basically, they take a huge needle and put it in your stomach, and it goes through into the amniotic sac, and they take the fluid to test for chromosomal defects.
Mhm.
So I did that, and he was like, "We're going to set up a follow-up appointment for 4 weeks from now. If you want to continue this pregnancy, I'll support you. I will do whatever you want me to do. But if you decide that you don't want to continue this pregnancy, I can help you with that as well." And so basically, we left that office, you know, in shock.
Mhm.
I think I stayed in bed for like a week after that.
Yeah.
And I think that was when I really started talking to God about it. I just remember laying in my bed, like, God, if you're gonna take her, just take her now. I was like, please don't put me through this. Please don't put her through this. Like I was just praying for him to tell me what to do. Either take her from me or tell me what to do. And honestly, God was very silent during this whole time. Um, I didn't I didn't know what to do. So the 4 weeks goes by, me and my husband have a lot of conversations about it, and we decided that we were going to continue with the pregnancy regardless of what ended up happening. So we go into that appointment, they do all the scans, and my doctor comes in and he's like, I've never in 40 years seen this happened. And I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, I didn't expect anything good to come out of it. And he's like, the only thing that is going on with her right now is this heart defect. He's like, the entire fluid is cleared out of her chest. Her stomach has been cleared. Everything looks amazing compared to the last time I saw you. He's like, I've never seen this happen before. And he's like, there's doctors and surgeons that I can point you to, and we can do surgery when she's born, and there's ways to get her through this. And so that was the first time I was like, all right, God, we can do this. We can do this. It's gonna be hard. I knew it was gonna be hard, but it was the first positive sign that I had gotten from God that she's supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And so obviously that whole pregnancy was difficult because every day I woke up, I'm like, oh, you're still here. Okay, you're still here. Um, I had to go weekly for ultrasounds and stress test, and it was a lot. In January 2019, she was born. And, I got to see her for just a minute. She had to have a C-section because the heart defect, they didn't want her to get tired too easily trying to come out. So they scheduled a C-section. I was able to see her.
I heard her cry. I was like, she's here. She's alive. She's breathing on her own. Like everything was good. They took her straight to the NICU. She spent a week in the NICU and then had her first open heart surgery at 7 days old, which as a first time mom was, I don't even know how I got through that time. It was a lot of praying. My husband is amazing. He's so supportive and just so strong for me. Because when I'm going through things like that, it's hard for me to take care of myself. He really just picks up the slack for me. We prayed over her so hard. She spent about 5 weeks in the hospital after her surgery. And then the day before Valentine's Day, she came home. She was home for, and basically what her heart defect is, it's kind of a correction for it, the surgeries. It's never fully healed, like she's never going to be okay, but the corrective surgery is a 3-step surgery. So they do one at 7 days, one at about 6 months. So she had that one, and then another when she's about 4 years old. So she had all three of those. And she is 7 now, and she's doing fantastic. And I just thank God every day that he just shows me his mercy and his miracle in my child. Like I look at her and I'm like, I don't deserve to have her. Like, she's your child and you're allowing me to have her. And I just remember during my pregnancy there was one song. I was driving my car, and I was just thinking about everything that was I was going through while I was pregnant. And I don't know if y'all heard that song, Everything Falls by Fee. It's like, "When everything falls apart."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one. Well, there's a lyric in it that's like, "When everything falls apart, you're the only hope for this heart." And I know
Oh,
it just hit me, like, it makes me cry still. It just hit me so hard because in that moment, I really realized that he is the only hope for my daughter. Like, obviously, the world told me that there's no hope for her, but God said, no, there is hope for her. She's my daughter and she will do amazing things and you will get to hold her. You will get to watch her walk. You'll get to see her go to school. And he has kept all those promises and still does every day. So that was probably my biggest um, trust moment when it came to God. And I think that's really when my um, faith took a deep dive because before that, I was probably a surface Christian, if that makes sense. I didn't grow up going to church. I wasn't really taught anything about Jesus. Anytime I would ask, it was kind of like we don't need to go to a building to talk to God sort of thing. So um, it's really brought me to the faith that I have now, just watching his miracle happen every day. I feel like a lot of people say that time is a thief, but I believe that time is a gift. Just every day that I get to be with her is a gift, and I wouldn't want it any other way.
So your act of faith was trusting that God was going to do what he said and giving you that time with your daughter.
Yes, even if she didn't make it, I
Yeah.
still had the time with her. And if she was never born, I still had time with her, in my belly. Like
Yeah.
I still had her regardless of what the doctor said. I still had that time with her. So,
Yeah. So you went from that 20-week anatomy scan where afterwards the follow-up appointment to get the deeper ultrasound or more complicated ultrasound telling you that didn't think she would make it, to then 4 weeks later going back and him basically correcting himself because she had miraculously healed, in those places with the fluid and everything, and just had the heart problems going on. But that's a miracle that she's healed right there. And then the doctor's like, okay, we can work with this. Like we can help her beyond just being in the belly. So that's wow.
did that make your faith like, did you feel like God, that was like, because you said God was silent during that time, that waiting period. Was that kind of the moment where you like, oh, I see you, God, or like I hear, I like when they gave you that news that that she had vibe, like she could live.
Yes.
Was that when you were like, oh, God is listening to me. He hears me. Yeah.
There's a reason that she's still here. And yes, he's still doing it. He's not going to take her from me. He is going to follow through with his promise that she's coming and that she's going to be a blessing to all of us.
Yeah. And she is. She's such a light. I was going to say, does it give you more confidence with these surgeries that she had? You were like, he did it before and helped, he's with me again. And then his promise, because I'm sure all of those surgeries too are like life or death type of feelings all over again. You've had to relive that over and over again for your daughter. Does those past moments of the trusting, do you remember those to help you through those times? Or what is it during those times that you cling on to make it through those times?
I feel like the first two were such a blur that I don't know. I honestly cannot remember what I was feeling or doing or anything like that. It was more of like a survival, like day to day. And with the third one, she was 4, and our second was a little under 1 years old, and that was more of a I have to consistently pray over her every day. Because you could just see she would get better, and then you could just see the life just be taken out of her because she's like, we're still here. It was like a good 35 days. We were in the hospital with her the third time. And, we're tired. We've got the baby at home and she just can't even like barely get out of bed. She gets so like depressed basically at the hospital and just wanted to go home so badly. And that was so hard. And I really just remember digging super deep and asking God, please just get her out of this hospital. Just get her out of this hospital. We can help her heal at home. She'll do so much better. And thankfully we had a couple of doctors there that felt the same way because they're like, I don't care what we have to do. We're going to get her out of here because she's not going to start feeling better until she starts feeling better mentally. And I don't think that's going to happen until she gets home. So we did have some really good doctors at the hospital that she went home oxygen because that was the only way to get her home. And they're like, that's fine. We'll get you hooked up with it. We'll get everything situated. Her cardiologist is very God-fearing woman. She's amazing. She's been such a blessing since before. Sorry, I have Ruby, Abby, and Bailey in there. She's been in Ruby's life since before Ruby was born. So I trust her over anybody when it comes to taking care of her. And she would come visit her at the hospital every day and bring her little presents and try to, lift her spirits. And she's been a big blessing too. So the doctors that God put in place for her have made it easier to, get through these difficult times.
Yeah. I love that your trust, like that's really what God asked you to do was to trust him. And I love that your trust is so deep that you got to that moment where you're like, this isn't mine, this is yours. And like, because it's so hard to not see our kids as ours. You have such spiritual depth to get to that place where you're just complete in surrender. God, this is your child, not mine. Your will be done and it's well with my soul. Like for you to get there, I mean, like you said, your faith would be totally probably different without this experience. And that's just remarkable that you can speak from that place with such confidence and just such, trusting God. This isn't my job. This is what you want. This is hard, but this is what it is. And I'm gonna, be okay because you're good.
Yeah. And it's awful to think about not having her in my life, but also I know that I've had so much time that wasn't promised already.
Yeah.
So, I just have to trust that whatever happens, it's God's plan for us. And I'm just grateful for every day that I get to have with her, with all my children, really.
You have such great perspective on just life. You live your life like with glass half full because you really do know how precious it is. And I'm sure your kids feel that from you too. Makes me appreciate things more too. It's like, gosh, I shouldn't have yelled at my kid today,
Yeah. Oh, well,
I know.
Yeah, I really love how you're able to look on the other side, even though, she's still her heart is not 100% healed, but you're able to reflect on her whole experience and see how God has really changed your relationship with him through this whole just terrible experience of having your daughter, go through such health scare. And I just really, I think sometimes we're not able to see what he was doing during that time, but you're at a place where you can see where this built your faith up and strengthened it and brought you close. Were there any times during, I guess, during her surgeries when she was younger that maybe you kind of had a setback in that where you're like, oh gosh, okay, are you still going to do what you said? Were there any moments of like you're in doubt?
There were, I think with this last surgery when she was 4, we were there so long, and so many people said the last surgery is the easiest one because it's the smallest, basically the smallest surgery when it comes to like working things with it. But for whatever reason, she just had all these complications. And I was just, when we passed the 10-day mark, I'm like, why are we still here? Like, I don't understand why this isn't getting better. I don't understand. And I kept saying that over and over to God. I'm like, I don't understand why she's not getting better. Like, she should be out of the hospital already. My expectation wasn't what God's plan was. And I really had a hard time just taking it day by day and just praying that it may not be the day that I wanted it to be, but that the day would be coming. And there was thoughts of her having to get a pacemaker at one point, and thank God that didn't have to happen, and it still hasn't had to happen. But it's always one of those things where if it does have to happen, there's a reason. Even though I don't want her to have a device in her chest. I don't want that. But if that's what she needs, then I need to accept that. And I just had a very hard time when they were trying to talk about that. It's difficult.
Did you just keep praying and talking to God to kind of maybe past those doubts and fears during her last surgery? Or how did you just, or did you get to a place where you started to feel, I guess, more at peace with it and what she was going through, knowing that there was a purpose and a plan? And even though God wasn't meeting your expectations, he knew what he was doing. But how did you keep moving?
I think there was a point where I was like, I couldn't talk to him anymore. I was mad. I was mad at him at a certain point. And it's not that I lost my faith in him. I just had a hard time accepting his timeline
Yeah.
versus my own. It really helped me realize that it's a bigger plan in place for her and for me and for all of us really. And I think he really wanted to, I don't want to say test my patience, but it's certainly that way. Yeah, build your trust. Yeah. Yep. There was definitely a time where I was silent when he was probably trying to speak to me, and I wasn't listening because I was just exhausted and discouraged. And I think I really just had to look at my daughter and say, it's not about me right now. I need to be strong for her and pray for her and do things for her. So I had to change my perspective. It was difficult at times, obviously, but yeah, it is a lot.
That can be one of the hardest things as Christians is really accepting God's timeline for whatever in our life, because we so often, like you said, we have this expectation of the way we think our lives should go and how they should go. And a lot of times that is not God's plan for our lives, and we do. It's a big step of faith to trust Him in that and be able to accept, okay, it's not my plan, it's God's plan, and be able to just trust Him in that. It's hard. It's really hard, especially in circumstances where you don't understand what's happening and why it's happening. Like, why you're in the hospital, why your daughter's still there. I feel like it's a very understandable feeling and perspective to feel that way. I think, a lot of people would relate to that, but it doesn't take away that it's still God's plan, and we do have to kind of submit to that plan and just trust that He knows what's best, even though we don't. But it's hard.
Yeah,
It is.
it is. And that's nice that you're honest about it because it's not all happy rainbows and
Yeah.
sunshine. And sometimes we do wrestle with God. And I know we're probably in a big like chokehold with him of like, I'm trying to get out of here. And he's like, my child, just wait. And I could see the visual of that. But yeah, I mean, hopefully, because it just, you cling to those moments later in life. You're like, okay, God, you had me then. He's got Ruby for the rest of her days, like, and yours too. And, that's great that you have that lifeline, that you have somebody to go to in those in trenches. And I just think that your kids are Ruby's gonna be like a light
Yeah.
wherever she goes. It's like, not that we're all not here on purpose, but when something happens in your child, it's like, you're not supposed to be here right now. Like everything said you're not supposed to be here. Those people are you're the chosen one almost. Like you're gonna do, like God indefinitely did everything to make sure you were here.
Yeah.
And that really is for everyone here for sure. But from our human perspective, you're like, no, like, ooh, this is, you're a miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really appreciate your honesty and sharing about the time when you were silent, but God was probably talking to you, but you were the one that was quiet. I don't think a lot of us will admit that, we were the ones that were quiet and God was trying to talk to us, but then you realized, okay, something has to change. And you changed your perspective and started praying for your daughter even more. And it can be hard to realize that it's us that needs to change our perspective on what we're doing. That God doesn't need to be the one that changes, God's always the same. He's good, He's sovereign. Like we know all these things, but it's us that has to change our perspective. And you did that. And that's very commendable because I feel like we can miss that a lot of times because we're just so stuck in our own way, really.
Yeah. It's like, we just want it our way.
We're very stubborn.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
And God's like, oh no, I'm gonna refine you here.
Yes.
You're gonna be who I called you to be. And
Mhm.
like Caitlin, you clearly are,
I mean, I know we're honestly thankful for it. I mean, as awful as it was, it's a testimony that I get to have. And I mean, I have met other women whose children have gone through the same things. When she was a baby, God bless social media for that little tiny happiness of having other people who are going through the same thing as you. Because I did find a couple moms who they were pregnant at the same time, and now our children are the same ages.
Yeah.
They have the same surgeries. One of the moms was in the hospital with her son getting the same surgery when we were getting ours, or her third one. They ended up going home like 2 weeks before we did. So when they went home, it was even more like, oh my gosh, what are we getting out of here? They're getting out of here. It's the same surgery. So that was disheartening. But I think that was also the time when it was like, you need to lean in. Now's the time to lean in. She's going to go home. It's going to be okay. I had to really just trust that that was what was going to happen.
Yeah. So God really provided this space and social media for you to connect with other moms going through what you've been going through, whether it's at the time you needed that encouragement and other people, but now you also can go and encourage other moms that are going through the same thing, which we've seen through our beautiful moms group. So that's really amazing. Are there any other ways that you've seen God move through Ruby's story?
Specifically Ruby's, a couple times I've seen it. It's more because I've had 2 miscarriages as well, so I kinda know that whole thing as well, and I know that I'm not open about it, but obviously if someone's going through it, I become open about it,
Mhm.
and I've definitely I feel like people have reached out to me that are going through similar things, and I don't think that God would have put me through those difficult things if it wasn't to be there to help other people go through the same things and to know that they're not alone.
So God has used her story to really help other people and given you this space where you can help others, even in other scenarios, not just her story, but in other avenues of your life where you've experienced loss.
Yes, or any type of like medical issues that children are going through. Shannon's story I really resonated with because I know how hard it is to just sit there and not know what's going on. And doctors are coming in and out, and no one's really talking to you. It's like you're not even there. It's, hello, I'm the mother. Can you clue me in? In those moments, I'm sure that you really had to be an advocate for your child. Otherwise, you just kind of get walked all over.
Yeah, and I feel like mama heart, God gives us this just supernatural instinct over them. So sometimes we even in the doctors would even say like, "Well, what do you think?" Sometimes because they just know. So you do have to be it's great to be a mouthpiece, but I love too that you're able to be more open with other moms going through this to comfort them, and you feel like that might be part of the purpose of Ruby's story. And I know you're an advocate too for heart. I know you guys do a heart walk, right? For Ruby. I've
Yes.
seen that. Yeah, she's in the heart community. I feel like that God's laid, especially those children experiencing that on your heart. Because tell us a little about the walk and what you all do. Is it once a year?
Yes,
So
once a year, usually in the fall, it's the Children's Heart Foundation. So basically, it's raising money for research for congenital heart defects. So it's one of the most underfunded, medical issues out there. They're trying to figure out different ways to, like for Ruby's specific heart, they're trying to do these different ways that you can reroute the heart to where you don't have certain liver problems in the future because your oxygenated blood is going a different way. It's all very complicated and outside of my expertise, but all that money that they raise for the walks and for other community service things that they do all go towards that research. So we do that every year. We have Team Ruby every year. We've been doing it since she was born, so this will be our 7th year going, I think. 7th or 8th, I can't remember at this point. We did skip a couple of years just because I think we just were in a season where I wasn't ready to be a part of all of that, especially after her last surgery. I think we skipped that one just because it's for heart warriors, which is somebody with a congenital heart defect, and also heart angels. So people who have lost their children to congenital heart defects. So, they have a whole tent dedicated to them, and people can come and pray for them and things like that. So, some years we kind of skip it because I just don't feel like I'm ready for that in that season. But I think we're going to do it this year. So, I think it's October 12th, I want to say. But yeah, it's the Children's Heart Foundation.
With Ruby's heart, knowing that it's not 100% healed, what does that look like moving forward for her? Because she's had her heart surgeries. Will she need any more heart surgeries, or how does her care look like moving forward?
So that's another hard thing to deal with because, like you said, it's corrective, but it's not. She's not healed. Like she'll never be fully fixed. She'll always be a single ventricle heart. So that leads to certain things down the path. She could possibly need a pacemaker at a certain point. The circulation she has could lead to, issues with her liver. She could need a heart transplant at some point. Those are all real possibilities for her. For now, though, she goes to her cardiologist every 6 months and has EKGs done, has all of her pressures looked at. And she just had one a couple months ago, and her doctor said she looks great. So we're just going to monitor for now, and hopefully everything going forward, it's positive for as long as it can be.
Does this keep her from doing anything in life, like hold her back in any way physically? Or is she able, because of the surgery she's had, does that allow her to, say, be more active when she might not have been?
So she's super active. She is a wild child.
Nothing's gonna hold her back.
The only thing she's not allowed to do is contact sports because we don't want something like
Yeah.
contact with her chest. But otherwise, she's pretty much free to do whatever she wants. It is a little heartbreaking. She's getting older now. Obviously, she's 7, and she's really realizing that she has a scar on her chest and her friends don't. And sometimes her friends will ask her, like, what is that? And I think she's getting very self conscious of it. And when she was younger, I'd be like, "Oh, you just have a special heart." And it was very easy to kind of just not brush under the rug, but just not attract attention
Yeah.
to. But now that she's getting older, I think she's like, "Why do I have to have this? Like, I don't want to have a scar on my chest." And I'm like, "Honey, God made you this way." And I know that's
Yeah.
really hard to hear as a 7-year-old, but the reason you have a scar on your chest is because, you were able to be saved through this surgery. You're able to be here today. And that's obviously hard for a 7-year-old to understand. But I'm hoping that she can build confidence with it. I know there's a lot of people living with it that are adults because I follow them on social media. So I was curious. They just started doing these types of surgeries like 40 years ago. So the people who got the first surgeries are becoming adults now. So it's interesting to see kind of like what they've been through and that they're all doing well. A few of them have had heart transplants, but they're still, doing fantastic. A lot of them are Christians, and just I know one is actually a heart, like PA. She does stuff with heart defects and stuff like that. So it's very, very cool to see that she has a future. Like it doesn't mean that because she's been through all of this that she doesn't have a future.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, I mean, I don't know about guys, but with girls, I feel like that's a normal reaction, right? Feeling that way as she's getting older and being a little self-conscious about her scar. But I know you probably pray this as well because I feel like it's going to be such a great story for her as she gets older and hopefully she learns to see it this way as if someone asks her and she can say, oh, well, this scar shows my miracle and how God saved me. And she can tell them about it, and tell them about God and Jesus. It could be such a gateway conversation to letting them know about Jesus and how much he loved her and his plan for her and keeping her here and healing her to a point where she is here and active and thriving and being wild. But also just sharing that love with other people and knowing what God can do for them or others that they love too. It could be such a great opportunity. I pray that she'll see it as that way, as she gets older. Because it is. It's a beautiful story.
That's what I tell her
Yeah.
too. Every
Yeah.
time she gets uncomfortable or self-conscious about it, I'm like, "Baby, it's beautiful. Your scar's beautiful. Everybody has scars, right?
Yes.
Everybody has scars." I mean, I told her the same thing because I've had 3 C-sections. I was like, "I've had the same spot cut 3 times. We have the same scars. They're just in different places."
Yeah.
So I try to make her feel less self-conscious about it. But yeah, it's more like because it sticks out like right on the top of her shirt. And I'm like, don't cover it up. You have nothing to hide.
Yeah.
You are a gift and you don't need to hide that.
Yeah. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Just thinking back to what that doctor said, like, "You should make it." Here she was 7 years old and thriving.
Yeah. Look what God did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God did.
And I had him the same doctor for my second and my third because I was high risk for both of them. And when I just had the third, he was like, "Look at how far we've come."
Yeah.
I was like, I know it's crazy. I adore him. He's a great doctor. And when my last appointment was for my last baby, I was like, I really am done this time. I swear I won't be back again. And he said the same thing as when I had my second. He's like, yeah, I think I'm retiring. And then when I was pregnant with her, I'm like, so are we retired? He's like, no. So I just thanked him for really just kind of doing what God asked him to do too, because he really, he was supportive. He didn't push me one way or the other. He was just like, whatever you want to do, I will support you.
Yeah.
He came to the hospital after I had each baby just to see how I was doing.
Wow.
And he's a great doctor. And so, like I said, just God put the right people in our life during that time to help us get Ruby to where she is today. So
I'm
such a
sure.
blessing.
Thinking about that, you have two other children. Is there any fear in those pregnancies of something being wrong with their heart? Or, how did you feel going into those pregnancies?
I think once you have a traumatic pregnancy, no pregnancy is easy. Like people who've experienced miscarriage or loss. I know people who have had, stillborns and stuff like that. And I just feel like you hold your breath until you hear that first cry, you just hold your breath. So while I tried to enjoy them, my second was definitely difficult because I had Ruby and then I had a missed miscarriage, those are really hard because you don't even know they're happening until you go to the first appointment. So I had that one and then I had my second. And so her whole pregnancy, I was very anxious. Obviously, once I went through the anatomy scan, I felt a little bit of a, I could let my breath out a little bit, but it was still every day just waking up and praying and that she was going to be born and healthy and that everything was going to be okay. I think my third was the easiest one because I feel like no matter what was going to happen, it was going to be okay.
Yeah, you need God.
At that point, yeah, he'd gotten me through so many things so far that I knew that no matter what, that everything would be okay with her. And I mean, that was my easiest pregnancy. But he has just continued to bless me. Every time I trust him, he shows up, and it's just whether what I expected or not, he shows up, and it's always better than what I expected.
Yeah.
Mm.
What would you say to moms that maybe are going through the same thing with their child as you've gone through with Ruby, or maybe they have a child that's had some type of
Medical setback.
I would say lean in to the people and to God that are there to support you. Because I think with Ruby, I really closed myself off at first. And once I started talking about it to other people started to open up to me. Because I remember I was at work and I didn't want to tell anybody at work because I just felt uncomfortable telling anybody. And I was working with a detective that I was close with. And I just was in a really sad mood that day, I guess, and he was like, "Is everything okay?" And I pretty much just word vomited all over him, and he was like, he started crying, which this man never shows emotion. He started crying, and he's like, "My twins were born super early. They were in the NICU. We almost lost them." He's like, "I completely understand what you're going through. I'm so sorry." And we have had a better relationship since. So it's like you never know what other people have been through and how they can help support you until you are vulnerable and you talk about it. I think God gives us each our own testimony when it comes to our children to be there for other people who have the same type of testimony so that we don't feel alone. Because, yes, we can lean into God and He is, all consuming, but we're still here as people and it still feels good to talk to another person who has either been through or is going through the same thing, makes you feel less alone and that everything is going to be okay no matter what happens. So,
Yeah. I think so often we don't want to share because we don't want to burden someone else, or maybe they won't understand what we're going through, but God definitely wants us to share with other people what we've experienced, to help us, but also to help other people for sure. God might use that person to speak to you in that moment to give you what you need to keep going or to keep trusting Him, or the words that might, in that moment, might not be hearing from God physically to yourself, but He might share with someone else to tell you what he needs you to hear in that moment. So, yes, being open and sharing with other people and letting others share with us too, their stories is so important because I think the enemy can really lie to us and make us feel like we shouldn't share our stories, that they aren't important, that they're not going to make a difference. But what we've gone through, it's for a purpose. And one of those purposes is to help other people get through those things too, whatever they're struggling with. So, yeah.
Right. God built us for community. He did it on purpose. And we literally, when we isolate, that's like the enemy's playground, like just to get you by yourself in your head. No one cares. And then God can't reach you there. He's like, I've got all these lifeboats, but you won't grab onto them. And it's hard to be vulnerable, but people really do. I feel like God, that's like you said, stuff like sometimes you're not going to hear from him, but you'll hear from him through someone else. And I think it's great that you can see that with the people he put in your life.
Yes, it really is a gift that I feel like God gives us to be able to help other people when we've struggled with something.
And we have just one more question for you, and it's the favorites question. Where was your favorite place to travel?
So I'm a local girl. I like to travel locally.
Okay.
I'm not like an
Yeah.
international person. I'd rather see, the United States first.
Yeah.
But my favorite place is Sanibel Island. That is like our happy place. When the hurricane took it out, I was devastated. Like seeing the pictures of it being flattened is just so sad. We went last year to Fort Myers, which was like right across the little inlet that they have between Fort Myers and Sanibel. And we went there just for the day. And it's been, 3 or 4 years and it's still so devastating. So we're going to try, I think, to go next year. Because we were doing it every year as a family vacation for like around my birthday time or my daughter's birthday. And that is just my favorite place. The shells are amazing.
Yes.
It's just like its own little paradise. I love Sanibel.
Well, thank you, Caitlin, for being here today.
Thank you. I loved it. Thank you guys. We appreciate your time. Yeah.
Thanks for listening. We are so glad you joined us.
We hope you'll tune in next week for another great episode.